and welcome to Spatial, the podcast where the real world meets the digital world as we explore the intersection of spatial computing and AI. Let's welcome our host, Andrew Ballard. Over to you, AB.
Welcome to Spatial, the podcast covering all aspects of spatial computing and AI. Each week we'll be bringing you recent news in the field of spatial AI, as well as diving deep into insights about where the field's headed. I am AB. Yes, I do have a real name, but most people don't call me that. Spatial is not just me though, far from it, and thank goodness for that. I'm really pleased to introduce to you to four other hosts who will each bring their knowledge and experience of spatial computing and AI to the table. Starting from my left, right, I'm facing south, so technically, anyway, it doesn't matter. Starting to my east is the easiest way of going. Helena Merschdorf is in Auckland, New Zealand. Helena is the owner of Tails Consulting, where she coaches geospatial companies on the importance of marketing and branding. She's also doing a PhD in, Geoinformatics and GIScience, or is that GIScience? Anyway, we need to ask Helena about these two topics. Definitely need to hear about a lot more in the future. Helena, welcome. Great to have you. GIScience or GIScience, how do you pronounce that second topic in your pitch?
Just GIScience. It's basically the science behind the systems when we're talking about GIS. So looking at, kind of ethical implications of GIS, looking at more the conceptual things underlying the technology and tools, I suppose.
Wow. That's seriously heavy. How far into the PhD are we going? How many thousands of words done? How many thousands of words to go?
I just realized that I'm in my 24th semester, so I think we're about 10 years in, and not quite there yet, but actually some exciting developments happening in that PhD. So what I'm looking at really is place and space. So it might become relevant in our conversation, looking at the difference between space and place. What actually is place? How is it formalized? The place concept, how does that change based on semantics, based on different language, cultural implications? I suppose that will be a conversation to have around spatial AI as well, because, space typically is Cartesian space. What we're dealing with more and more so is actually place, but place isn't place to everyone. It's very subjective. So we want to try and bring some formality into that concept so that it can be used in different contexts, that it can be integrated with AI, that it can be made more relevant without making assumptions that don't hold true for different countries, cultures, languages, and so on.
Fantastic. Is there a plan to defend the thesis this year in 2024, or still
possibly not?
To be set?
Maybe 2 more years. Give me 2 more years.
Okay, all good. Great to have you, Helena. Awesome to join. Next, going further east is Mirek Burkon, currently in Vancouver, Canada, slightly jet lagged. That's okay. You just flown back from Scotland. The frequent flyer points are kicking up. Mirek is the founder of Phantom Cybernetics, where, amongst other things, he's developing an operating system to be able to control and direct robots, drones, or machinery using an augmented reality overlay. Mirek is working on even more projects in the spatial AI space, which, like Helena, we need to explore in more detail. Mirek, welcome to Spatial. Great to have you.
Hello.
We got you. How many coffees down today? Is the jet lag, or more the point, your body's in Vancouver? Where's the brain?
Working on it, yes.
Well done. The blood is pumping, which is really good, but after this you might just crash and burn for the weekend, which is perfectly fine. What's the vague plans for 2024? Do you have a master plan, or is it every month as it?
It's applied research, really, to be honest. So you never know where you get and how long it's going to take. But the big idea is to really enable humans and semi-autonomous machines to work together in physical space in a brand new way, using augmented reality as the medium to sort of glue everything together. And that's where I'm headed. It's been a lot of middleware, boring, mundane, uninteresting work that actually enables, things to work together. Hopefully we'll have something physical. I made a video about 2 years ago that sort of outlines the concepts of where I'm trying to get. So aiming at areas such as robotic construction, which is this emerging field with a lot of promise. I'm thinking with the right combination of human intelligence and dexterity and specialized machinery, we can unlock a lot of new potential, but it's a lot of assumptions and a lot of stuff needs to be built in order to test those assumptions. And it's really an intersection of so many very difficult areas to tackle that, you never know.
Well, Mirek, you're deep in the weeds, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you, because having someone who's that singularly focused on a product, yes, doing many months of networking and the middle stuff is where, stuff gets real. So great to have you. Great to have your viewpoint on these sort of topics as these sort of topics come out. So great to have you, Mirek. Awesome.
Happy to be on and hope I can contribute with something interesting.
Of course. Look, going even further eastward, and apologies to the 5 flat earthers who are listening to this podcast, but we could have gone west as well. We have our final 2 hosts. We have Whitney and William Martin, both living and working, between Philadelphia and New York, but currently today sitting in Philly. Violet teaches spatial computing at Columbia University. This list is huge. Columbia University, University of Pennsylvania, and the University of Michigan. I need to get those U.Mich. Anyway, I need to learn my US. Okay, I know the U of it. Anyway, I need to get my USA university slang better. She was the director of product at Sidewalk Labs, which is a Google company building smarter cities. She now shares her insights on Medium and on spatial AI projects on her website, Spatial Pixel. Violet, great to have you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. And if I might just add one thing.
Yes.
Is that William and I have been working on Spatial Pixel, which is a design research studio.
Absolutely. Which leads in perfectly, and I'll come back because in Australia, I think England too, I guess I'd call this a twofer. Is that a term that anyone else knows? Helena, you might know that. Anyway, a twofer is a 2-for-1. Sitting to, relatively spatial. Anyway, to your left, and even potential, I don't know. Anyway, sitting next to you is William Martin. William is the director of AI at Consensys, which is integrating AI into their range of Web3 products. He also teaches at Columbia. Sounds like everyone teaches at Columbia. The rest of us need to get a teaching position. And he's teaching a brand new course this year, squarely focused on spatial AI. William is the partner of, or I'd say the partner in crime of Violet. And together with their dog, Isamu, is that right? They're exploring new software and hardware projects on their website, Spatial Pixel. William, welcome. Great to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Did I get Isamu right? I have visited his Instagram page. I need to get gender
her
and
Instagram
her.
page, yeah.
Thank you. Apologies to her. So Isamu has been busy posing for many, many photos. Haven't not yet seen the interaction quite yet with your robot dog, but here that's going very well. How's the early interactions?
It's going very well, I think. She's not completely terrified of a mechanical dog, and we have a great video to send you after this. We're hoping that they're going to be great friends, and perhaps in some ways having the new robot dog be a companion too, but maybe even a trainer of our young pup. So
nice. There was no cautious sniffing. There was no marking territory by either the robot dog or by the real dog.
There was cautious sniffing,
Okay.
but we were quite encouraged by that. There was a sort of sudden reaction to its first sort of getting on all fours, and then she quickly jumped in and sniffed all matter of all parts of its mechanical anatomy. So, yeah.
Right. If I could be so bold, was there sniffing on the back half versus the front half?
Oh, indeed.
Right, okay. Yeah. Very good. Well, I'm glad that they're friends, or at least they're cautious colleagues now having to share the attention. Well done.
I think cautious colleagues is a great way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Time will tell, and we're hoping to track that quite well. Look, with introductions done, and don't panic, they'll get quicker and they'll get more natural in the coming weeks. Let's get into some spatial AI news of the week.
Fast 5.
Welcome back. This is Fast 5. We're going to cover news of the week. In this case, this is early January 2024, possibly delayed as we get this first episode of the podcast out. I'd like to hand over to Violet for her Fast 5. Violet, what do you have for us at all?
Awesome. Yeah, so what I have for you is, if everyone's been following the Humane AI pin, this has had a lot of hype and a lot of skepticism, but essentially there's a new AI-enabled pin that has a projector that you wear, and it projects onto your hand. Now, they haven't released it fully yet, but they are allowing pre-orders. So the thing that I'm showing here is actually not from Humane, but it's a couple of young product designers that have been thinking about what would it be like to navigate using something like the Humane pin. And what's really interesting about this is that we're seeing a lot more of what people are in the design world calling natural interfaces. And a lot of this, rather than seeing user experiences that are in the screen, starting to have interactions that are a lot more natural. So being able to interact with technology through gesturing, through gesturing and speaking, like saying, hey, should I go left or right while, or is this building or that building while gesturing the right one? And so I think that's really going to enable this much more natural way of being present in the physical world, not looking down at some screen. And what I loved about the concept they did here, I actually don't even know if the Humane pin is going to be as amazing as this concept they've come up with. But one of my favorite things is they show someone going and getting an Uber, and on their hand, they see that code, the license plate on their hand. And then as they approach the car, they see a projection directly onto the car that says, hey, this is your Uber, or oh, I don't know, it maybe says the guy's name, like, hi, Michael, this is your blah, blah. So I just really, it's just the annoyance that I experience every day. Every time I get an Uber, I'm like clicking an app and I'm like scrambling, like combing through the little letters, trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And that's just the modern experience today. So it's really exciting to see people starting to come up with these interactions that are much more grounded in just real life and putting the information that we're trying to get
just the core
back
data
into the physical world.
Yeah. Nice. How much is this concept, do you think, going ahead of the actual pin's capabilities today? Is this going into uncharted territory? Is this potentially going to be rolled into? I'm just trying to think. There's probably a software development paradigm of never be a plug-in developer, because if your plugin is awesome, then the main app generally rolls that into the foundational next version. Is this kind of concept something that is, you think, close enough to possible that it might be feature rich?
All of this type of technology is possible, and a lot of what we've been playing with is the capability of projecting things into the world. We've seen the Humane pin actually has a projection on the hand, but I suspect there's a lot of complexity to be able to do this very well in relatively real time. Like, you'd have to understand that the car that drives up is your car.
Yep.
And have a way of matching that. And my guess is that this is not possible. All the kinks are not worked out yet. Yeah. And so it's a great concept, but I'm still very skeptical of the Humane AI pen because so much of their release has, I don't know if any of you have
the hype cycle is
seen their release.
off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah, the hype cycle. And also they haven't really shown that much, which always makes you a little skeptical.
Yeah. They are definitely going to be beholden to Moore's law of the battery life issue of probably they can get extra CPU power of these things, but, having something to project that long for that hard and, if only there was a 12-volt car battery in their back pocket to be able to power these things. So there's always that tension, isn't there, between I want it small and lightweight and awesome, but I also want as much power as I can possibly use. So they are at a serious convergence of competing product features. Yeah. Awesome, Violet. Thanks for that. We'll have the links to this concept in the show notes. That's easily done. Helena, what do you have for us for a Fast Five?
I have got something cool that I came across today, actually, and it's called Perplexity AI. So essentially, having one leg in academia and one leg in the marketing world, I notice a lot of parallels and I notice a lot of convergence where the two worlds could learn a lot from each other. And what academia could definitely learn from marketing is the art of storytelling. It's the idea that your message will get lost in the whole big mountain of academia if you don't find a way of conveying it appropriately and compellingly. So I think there's something like 2 million papers published a year, and unless you have a way of making yours stand out, it's not really going to get that much of resonance, even though it might be great research that you've been doing. And on the flip side, what I find that marketing really needs to learn from academia is the integrity of citing one's sources and of contextualizing one's work and one's claims. And so what we've obviously seen in 2023, it was the year of ChatGPT, and it was the year of crappy copy. It was probably the year of crappy academic papers. I don't know. I wasn't, maybe some of them haven't come up to publish yet, but, I'm sure Violet and William, you've probably seen your fair share of academic ChatGPT things coming out of the students' laptops. So what ChatGPT can do really, really well as a large language model trained on stuff prior to 2021 was, create concepts, give you information of all the stuff it's been trained on, but it's not pulling active stuff out of the day-to-day internet, and it's also not very good at citing its sources. Now, Perplexity is a AI tool similar to ChatGPT in that you can ask it questions, but it will actually cite its sources. And I feel like this is really something that more marketers should adopt. It is something that we should be really transparent about when developing products, when developing the messaging for products, to have that context, to understand where else is this stuff coming up, what are other people saying, how can I embed my product or my idea into the context of what's out there. And in a fast-moving field like, spatial AI, that is hugely important, because by the time when your idea comes to fruition, so much will have happened in the meantime that, your original idea may not be as compelling as it was when you first had it. You might want to be contextualizing your message to all this other stuff. So asking a large language model like ChatGPT to give you a competitor analysis to say, hey, what's out there? And its last update was, its training stuff from 2021 may not be so helpful. Whereas Perplexity will actually give you the newest insights collated by AI, and it cites its sources, so you can go to the original sources. You can look at what everyone else is doing. It's essentially just a really great research tool, which is what I intend to be using it for. But as I said, I only came across it today, and actually there's so much out there at the moment. They're cropping up like weeds, so there might be even cooler ones out there than this. Have to figure it all out, I guess.
That's awesome. So this is actually combining a large language model with the beginnings of what was thought not possible for a large language model, and that's the XAI, the explainable AI of if it has a large thread of a response, it can actually annotate where that response is largely coming from. Is that the core differentiator of this product?
So essentially, it just spits out its, it answers a question, but it just cites its sources like an academic paper does. So it will give you a claim, and it has a little one, like the referencing style, and then it has the source, and then it has another claim, and then it has a 2, and it has the source. And so you can actually just go in, and instead of just believing what it's telling you, you can go in and check out where it's actually getting this stuff from. I did notice that it was getting a lot of its stuff from the internet. I'm not sure, obviously it can't access paywalled papers. It can probably access open source. I wouldn't use it as the comprehensive research tool. Like, it's not going to save you from doing an actual literature analysis, but it's good for a quick overview.
Fantastic. So that's get my tongue right. Perplexity.ai. Lovely. It presents as a standard large language model, ChatGPT kind of interface. But yeah, that's brilliant. The fact that it can actually call out references on the fly. Probably same question to you as with the Humane pin for Violet. Do you think this is going to be endlessly copied in the next couple of days and weeks, and everyone's going to have this? This is pretty much one of the holy grails of a large language model, being able to cite sources with some confidence levels.
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting together big tables of AI tools as they've been cropping up, and I am noticing a lot of, overlap, a lot of tools that are doing the same thing. Then they have huge differentiations in price point, and sometimes it's really down to the nitty-gritty what actually sets them apart. And I think, not everyone needs everything. So this Perplexity, it's free for the basic level, and then there is a pro license, so you can probably, like ChatGPT, you can probably use so and so many tokens on a free license, and then if you want more, you go pro or whatever. I'm sure it's going to be endlessly copied, optimized on, added to. I don't even know what else it can start pulling in, but as they all start working together as well, as you integrate AI image generators and video and so on, it's going to blow up into a big beast at some point. So at the moment, we've still got individual threads. I'm not sure where that's heading, even in just a year or so, what we're going to be seeing. We can already, ChatGPT is already spitting out images and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's all going to become a lot more
versions is astounding. Yeah, no, it's happening at its own speed, which is, a new breakthrough every 2 or 3 weeks on average. So that's a legendary link. Thanks for that. Thanks, Helena. Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Mirek, fast 5. I think we may have failed the 5 minutes there, but hey, Mirek, if you've got a nice news article for us, go for it, mate.
Yes, I'm about as prepared as Helena is, and I will show you something that I found today. It's a new research paper coming out of the Stanford University, and it's called Mobile Aloha. And essentially, it's what they're using is this robot with 2 gripper arms, that can perform very interesting and very nuanced tasks, such as cook a dish, or fold clothes, or do your laundry. And the first thing that will probably surprise you is how dexterous this machine is and how well it performs. What may not be as apparent is how that was achieved. And essentially what they're doing is they have a special interface for teleoperating this machine. Imagine a doctor using an endoscope. So it's handles with buttons and specialized interface that teleoperates the robot right in front of you, and they record a task being right there next to the robot with excellent vantage point, and this is then translated to or fed to a neural net that is able to translate this kind of process on objects that are found in the space around the robot. So you teach the robot how to do a thing, how to fold your clothes, and then it can fold your, you teach it how to fold a t-shirt, and it might be able to fold your pants also. So there's some level of abstraction. It's a whole new thing, and I have yet to read the paper. I'm slightly suspicious about how well it actually performs in the real world, because it is a research paper, and the video is mind-boggling, but also edited, as these things often are. So my main interest now is how the robot then actually identifies the objects and in the real world and achieves the same level of accuracy as when a person is effectively driving it by hand.
No, that hit the news in the last few days, and it was phenomenal to see. And the focus is both on the trainable and the manipulators, the arms, to be able to do things that are. You're right; it doesn't seem fully stable. The video certainly has some excellent edits in it, but the low cost factor is surprising.
To me, it's surprising how much dexterity you can achieve with hardware that is really not so special. What they're using is these pinch robot arms that you can get for around $300 each. And then the trick really is in software and in the way they provide the control for the person teaching the robot the task. But it seems like a really interesting way to go about this, because even in the human world, monkey see, monkey do. So here it's like, really efficient way to provide the input to the robot with like really high degree of accuracy. My question is how it then translates to unknown environments, how it translates to objects that don't really look or are placed, in the world, in the real world as as closely to the training set. And again, I have to yet read the paper, so it's just something that I discovered, and I find it quite interesting.
Oh, it's one to watch without fail. The effort they've done in the last many months to get to this stage is phenomenal. And you're right, to be able to generalize anything is, again, a massive goal. But I do worry about if I was trying to flip an egg and miss the pan 5 times, but that's okay. The fact that this is even remotely a possibility is just wonderful to see. It is quite eerie to see the robot sort of not jerking around, but when it stops, it does wobble to a stop. It's not as planted as a robot that we're used to now. It can get away with some looseness that is phenomenal to see.
Yes, exactly. It's interesting to see what can be achieved with this kind of hardware. Yeah. But the question, the devil is in software. Yeah, as it usually is. I'm slightly skeptical, but also very interested, because I've seen these things being trained in simulation. That's the common way to do it. You might try to approach it algorithmically, which will be very difficult. But supervised learning in simulation is the way to go. This seems to circumvent all this and fast forward the learning process. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, lovely. And I hope that no T-shirts are harmed in the making of the next few tests, or you have to break eggs to make an omelette. I hope they don't break the omelette and break the robot.
They also just published a bloopers video where the robot spills some hot oil while cooking, a dish. So yeah.
Well, they are going fast, and it's great to see. Legendary, we'll put the link to that in the show notes. If you want, I might go next with the Fast Five. I'm actually going to bring the tone down a little bit. I've actually got some. If I click there we go. It's just the Christmas holidays have just been and gone, and the Ballard family had a spectacular Christmas, not the least of which was our Christmas lights this year. So 2 years ago, had the absolute joy of watching Matt Parker, Stand Up Maths on YouTube, an Aussie in London who does some amazing videos. He did to put it nicely, a bit of an awesome hack job of he actually put, I think, 500 lights on his Christmas tree well before Christmas. and then took a long time to actually map in 3D space those Christmas lights on his tree and release the spatial map to the world. And he actually asked people from around the world to submit their own light patterns to play on his Christmas tree. So not just twinkling lights, but also, runs of patterns up and down and left and right, and using the whole volume as a canvas in that way. That was only 2 years ago, and that was pretty hardcore and pretty well done. The hard work was both mapping and then having to get the way to get the mapping to other people to then submit a lighting pattern. I'm happy to announce that this year we found a off-the-shelf product called Twinkly, and Twinkly is pretty darn awesome. It's you just buy it and it does all these features. Link there for co-hosts to go and play with, but it does everything that you want for your Christmas and your to try and beat the Joneses across the road, or to try and make your lights better than the neighbours. Not the Joneses. What's the Anyway, movie reference is gone. I had it there for a second. It's great fun though. It literally lets you lay out lights in any way you want, and then use the app, and then it puts the lights on in a nice digital way to figure out where the lights are in 2D space or in 3D space. And then you can apply any range of patterns to those lights. So the Ballard family started with 200 lights as a bit of a test run, and it was very quickly assessed by my wife that no, we needed more. So we went back and bought 2 more sets. So we had 600 twinkly Christmas lights on our garage door. And I'm happy to announce that not only that, but you can actually gang them up. You can actually put them all as one large set. So our neighbours were hopefully slightly over or under impressed by our Christmas lights decoration this year. But oh, you wait. Christmas 2024, we have some very large plans too. That was only a 2D thing. We used our garage door as a nice canvas to play our lights on, which was lovely. But in 11 and a half months' time, we're going to be trying to usurp that with some actual 3D. I don't know what we're going to wrap it on. We've got a long time to figure out how to make this work. But I'm just quite in awe of the fact that something which was highly conceptual 2 years ago, a math problem using photogrammetry to figure out where things are in 3D space, baking that in, which would have been so hard first time. Now you just point your camera. Granted, it works better at night, so it's got more chance to grab them. And the mapping was relatively painless. Even if it missed some, it will interpolate, hey, if I don't quite know where that light is, but the one before and after it's there and there, I'll put it halfway. It does a very good job. So the ultimate of these lights is, and probably here's the marketing sales spiel here, and if I'm not sponsored already, here's 11 months opportunity to get that happening. If you have enough lights, you can use this as an external monitor and actually show fairly low quality but actual imagery, moving images on these lights. So potentially squad goals. We'll see how that pans out. In my wife's birthday is in the middle of November. That is the date in our household where we can change the house over from regular to Christmas decorations. That's always the treat. She has to wait that long. So middle of November, perhaps 15th to 18th, this year is when our light display will come into full effect. So quite in awe of how a software solution, which is doable but hard work, is now just an app. It's a phone app and it just works wonderfully. So I'll put links in the show notes. There's some videos there. I'm sure there are YouTube or Instagram channels of people showing off their twinkly lights. But say for something which was once almost pure geek to now just buy it and make it happen, absolutely love it. So should be a great year of scheming in this part of the world. William, over to you for a Fast Five. All yours.
Great, thank you. I have this link here to an experiment done by Agility Robotics, and I think it's fortuitous that it uses some of the technologies that Helena and Mirek have pointed out. Agility Robotics is an interesting company. They build and design an anthropomorphic robot for factories. And their value proposition is you don't have to build your factories around the robotic capabilities of most factory robots. So the idea is you can purchase one or many of these humanoid robots, and they just go into your existing factory and you can train them to do various rote tasks. The experiment that they did was to hook up a large language model to one of their robots so that they could give it commands and experiment with its sort of understanding of those tasks and the ability to translate that into physical motion. And so this YouTube video aptly shows just one of their humanoid robots walking amidst some numbered pillars, and they ask it to do things like finding and moving Darth Vader's lightsaber. And the fact that the LLM itself already knows, or the model itself, it's multimodal in a way. The fact that it knows that Darth Vader's lightsaber is red, it can already identify that without having to be sort of explicitly trained on it. And so I think something like this, combined with the Stanford robots, could be really, really fascinating. And it's a dream of mine and Violet's to be able to just ask a robot to make breakfast for us. And so maybe there's some synergy here as we start seeing robotics become more and more intelligent in a way that's leveraging this new LLM technology.
That's phenomenal. William, is the robot hardware contributing a lot to this work, or is it the software and the large language model that really is helping bridge that gap, as in the arm wrestle between which is being the more useful, amazing new hardware advances, or in this case, software to really push this sort of way of working?
Well, from what I understand, what they're testing just in this video is the ability for the large language model to sort of smooth that space between formal instructions and natural language. And I think that's a value proposition that we're trying to explore quite a bit. How can you use an LLM not necessarily to write marketing copy, but instead to understand a set of instructions in a more sort of fluid and human way, and then translate that into the formal instructions that a computer system needs in order to really direct robotics or direct other systems. So some of the experiments that we've done with AI assistants are about sort of using natural language to give us some productivity benefits by still leveraging the space around us. So things like saying, load my calendar on my iPad, or load a Pinterest board on the projector that I have set up, and just asking the large language model to move various bits of information around with the idea that you can leverage your own spatial intelligence, something that we really miss when all of our kind of productivity experiences are filtered through a single screen. And I think this robotics experiment does something similar, where instead of needing to open the Agility Robotics app and setting waypoints and trying to engage the sort of interfaces that they have around wayfinding, you can just ask the robot, move this object over there, and it would follow through. And I think that's a kind of an interesting analog with the Stanford experiment that Mirek presented, because there that training is almost grabbing the handles of the robot and saying, hey, here are the motions that I want you to perform. And the neural network there smooths that space and is able, that sort of space of understanding between specific motions of a shirt and, say, folding your pants. So that's in some ways, I think what's exciting about this is maybe LLMs in a more utilitarian fashion can really allow us to engage with technology in that more natural way, and it becomes this sort of translator instead.
Phenomenal. Nice one. By all means, we'll need to put that video link in the show notes so we can all follow along with it, but that's pretty awesome. That one doesn't have the low cost tag that the Stanford one did. Is that purely prototype? Is that we're not like talking credit card purchases here?
No, I don't think it's a credit card purchase unless you have quite a high limit. But these particular robots, I'm sure, are intended for industrial use in areas where eventually that cost saving can be realized once you figure out how to coordinate your robotic and your human workforce. So.
Nice. So currently the eggs over easy and black coffee in the morning is still a ways off. So that's okay. All good. Being the first up to put the kettle on or put on the coffee is still a human task. I'm kind of glad to hear that for a little while longer. Thanks, William, and thanks all. That will wrap up Fast 5. We did pretty well. Under 25 minutes, I reckon, for 5. So I think we hit the mark pretty well. Nice work.
Deep dive.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to do a deep dive now. We're going to ask the obvious question in early January 2024 of what were the biggest advances of spatial AI in 2023. Part of the reason is to just catalogue what's there, but the other reason is to sort of go deep and figure out what were the sort of the pointers, the things that brought us all together to this podcast, to why do we all think that spatial AI is going to be as big as we think it is. So what are the things that happened in the last 12 months that have really formed us into this point of view of, these are real things that are now emerging as candidates for fields that we want to absolutely play in the next few years. Love to hand it over to us all for a great chat. Love any major trends, concepts. I mean, 2023 was unashamedly the year of the large language model. Yes, they existed before now, but I think it was only January 2023 when GPT-3 really hit the world. Suddenly, yes, father-in-law was using ChatGPT to help his speeches at the local, down to the local club, that kind of thing. It really is that it became an everyone's tool for students galore. The anti-large language models have been and almost gone. But I think for the first time ever, the concept of doing things that we wouldn't normally do faster, I won't say better, but certainly faster, easier, has become a topic that is now approachable for almost every person who has an internet connection. Love to open the floor, but topics that really raised your insights into the biggest things that happened last year that led to where we are today.
I can jump in.
Jump in, please do.
All right. Well, I think it's a lot of stuff that was present that everyone was showing here, and maybe related to that concept I showed. But if I had to summarize some of the most important things that happened last year, I think it's this ability to speak just in plain language, and combine that with this multimodal capability. And maybe even to summarize that even more, I think what's important about that is that we have the ability to move beyond the screen. Post-COVID, we've been spending so much time. We have a bunch of people addicted to devices. So I think there's a real craving as human beings to be present and to be in the physical world, to point at something and say like, hey, I mean this. To not have to interact with someone by clicking apps and going through menus. And so I think one of the most important things that's happened is that multimodalness that allows us to communicate the way I communicate with you, where I'm pointing, saying you understand the context of like what I'm saying is a little bit different based on where I'm at or who I'm with. And all that context is really the way humans reason and the way humans interact. So I think technology being able to come into our world and reason in the way that humans do.
We've had many years of voice assistants. I won't name them for fear of making everyone's devices light up. They certainly sparked their own revolution when they happened. I know around this household, the number of conversations we have at the kitchen table of, oh yeah, I must remember to do that thing tomorrow. It's like, just speak it out loud. Someone will, your device will pick it up and do it. And the hesitance to do so is always funny to listen to. But that cycle of everyone tried it. If it wasn't perfect, people didn't try it. But then actually the technology got better quietly under the hood. So actually now it has a very good chance of being able to be a good helper for more and more things. Are you thinking that same sort of cycle of early tests are going to have limited functionality and probably do the up and the down and then the fail fast, but version 2 and version 3 and version 23 and 28 are going to just be,
I mean, we have an Echo. Hope it doesn't go off. But it's basically us constantly yelling at it. I'm sure other people with smart homes have the same experience. And I do think that we're going to have an era that's just going to be awful. That's really these generative systems trying to reason or like guess, like, you know, because that's a lot of what humans do. They guess based on context. And we're moving from a world where we give very explicit commands. You know, right now, if you give your Echo a command, it's like, you have to speak like a robot. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so when we first start, I think when all this experimentation starts and these things start getting released, it's like, you know, I'll say, hey, turn the lights off every time I leave the house. And for some reason, it'll like turn them on, or, you know, or it'll, God forbid, turn the oven on, and then my house will burn down. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I do think there will be this like era of guessing.
Middle ground. Yeah.
Which it's going to be the worst. But after that.
So after we get through, was it, I'm trying to think about the hype cycle, through the trough of disillusionment or something, or we should get the plateau of content anyway.
Yeah, after a few houses accidentally burned down.
Okay, good. Okay, well, not yours. Cross fingers, touch wood. Yeah, well done. Legendary. Other thoughts on going multimodal? And obviously, I think we've come off. We've long since gone beyond computer vision being able to tell that it's a cat or a dog. And in my field, we'd call that trusted AI. So going from AI to raising the waterline for those with kids, it's, you know, you let them do a few things, and after a while, they can put the cutlery back in the cutlery drawer, and you can trust that. And same thing with AI. We've gone from it can do things with photos and detect things to a level now we're happy with it. But now with multimodal, the most amazing thing of 23 that I guess I've seen is that it can start to infer more things from things that we thought were not possible in 2 dimensions. So going into that 3D space, depth perception of a simple photograph without needing stereoscopic cameras and LiDAR and all the other things. I've actually seen full circle. Some research projects go from deep sensors everywhere to actually just chuck a rugged camera on the front of this thing, and it can generally figure things out to an okay level. That would have been shot, drawn, and quartered 3 years ago if I had have said, let's take off the 30 sensors and just put on a GoPro. That's now doable because things like perceiving depth and figuring out segmentation live is, you know, the Facebook segment anything model. There were segmentations before, but be able to do segmentation bracket based on depth. So from single visions, you can actually figure out things that us as humans do every single day. We know how to figure out that, you know, my black microphone is the same color as my black t-shirt, but, you know, there's 2 things there. It's not just blob and blob. So for me, that's the sort of the going from all the classical, and I put that in an asterisk, 2-dimensional computer vision AI kind of worlds to now from the exact same set of inputs, we can now infer depth, 3D, temporal things as well. So yeah, it's been amazing change. Other sort of big things that you found in the last 12 months that have really inspired?
I would maybe stay on the topic of 3D and displays and, well, multimodality. Because what I find interesting is, the growth of VR as an industry or maturing of this industry. And we've seen things like HoloLens or Magic Leap, you know, in the years prior. But the cost was prohibitive for many people, and the use cases were kind of limited, mainly because of the technologies that were used in these, like, you know, AR devices that are kind of true to what they are, true AR. So you're actually looking through a display, as opposed to seeing a camera feed on a screen, which is what the latest Oculus and even Apple headset do. I think this is opening very interesting possibilities, and this is coming from somebody who for years has been working, on my own experiments and research with a device that I pretty much made myself out of something that you could get off the shelf, and you have to customize it both in terms of hardware and software. Quite a big deal. So we were seeing these devices coming to market being really affordable, under $500, price mark. That's not mentioning the Apple, scenario, typical Apple in typical Apple fashion. But I think we're seeing finally people thinking of what you can do with these things. And for years before all this came together, I've been watching companies and I've been talking to people in the industry who were promising this new paradigm shift and how this kind of technology will change everything. And for years, I've been telling them that it may not be what they are actually thinking, because we have technologies such as touch surfaces and tablets and whatever you're using these days. They are perfectly optimized for the tasks that you need them to do. We're used to those metaphors, in terms of interaction and abstraction of how we work with data and how we actually talk to a computer that is a flat thing on your palm. And there's been a lot of hype that I think was a little misguided. We don't need a new technology to do what we've been doing. But these devices unlock applications that aren't possible in any other way. And when you can actually get a device and hack it a little bit, sadly, you still have to do it because in many cases, both Facebook or Meta these days and Apple design a product based on their assumptions on what the customer or developers will do with these products.
Their own ecosystem.
Very often these assumptions aren't correct. And from my experience, the applications that will shine in this world are quite different than reading emails or scrolling through news feeds, because you can do that much more comfortably using your existing means, existing devices. So I'm really happy to see this shift, and I now have 3 really well-made devices that I can experiment with and compare them, and it makes this process of iteration on ideas much easier than it was. And even there are social elements to it. People started walking into cafes with Oculuses on their faces, which is kind of cringy, kind of weird, but there is some element of transition. And you can see, somebody work in a cafe on 3 virtual screens, and it makes sense in certain situations.
Well, better coffee is the first thing.
Yeah. but from my own perspective, it's this technology that became a commodity. Yeah. And you can get as many of these things as you want, and you still have to hack them. It's software challenges. You're oftentimes working against the original intent of the designer. But I hope that's gonna mature even more, and there's gonna be a little bit more openness and understanding that people want to do different things. Not necessarily consumers, but developers want to go in different directions than the product designer of the headset.
Yeah.
And I hope we'll start seeing more applications related to computer-assisted design, which is something I've been experimenting with quite a bit. That, I think, is one of the strong applications of augmented reality. I mentioned what I'm doing with robotics. That's pretty much the same case. Like, people all of a sudden can grab a device, and it doesn't have to be $3,000 or $10,000. It can be something you can get for $300. and it's perfectly fine, it's comfortable, and you can just iterate on your idea very quickly. So I find that really interesting and a big shift in this industry.
So Mirek, you're starting to see the shift. I mean, every field, when they get a new paradigm, basically has to use the bias of the previous paradigm to think about it. I'm thinking back to the skeuomorphism. Anyway, your calendar application had to have the rich Corinthian leather look to make it feel like a calendar, like a nice leather calendar. And over time, we've been able to go from I accept that to now I can abstract that to now I don't want that. Are you thinking by all means that we can get to that same level of, reading email on your XR headset?
Actually, skeuomorphism is a good point. I think there's a big deal of legacy in VR and AR, and I think we can design we as humans can take much more abstraction than designers often think we can. And you don't need a huge button in front of your face, to achieve something. We can take great deal of, upside. If you design something that has a little bit of learning curve, that's fine. If it pays off and if the application ultimately allows you to achieve something really new and unique, you'll be happily able to learn it. And I feel like we're kind of missing still. We're still kind of looking for the right things to apply this to. It's a solution looking for problems.
We're still looking for the killer app that gets us out of our mind enough to be able to not have a scrolling.
Especially when we talk about augmented reality, which has been overhyped, and the result of the products of huge investments have been mainly underwhelming. And most people look at Magic Leap, for instance, and the money they burned, and the product that is then used for something that you can really do on your laptop much easier.
Yeah.
So I think this will start to change with many more people being able to experiment with consumer products that still need to hack a little bit, but that's fine.
Spend a whole year.
Yes, it does make me think, what is the right use case for wearables like that? It's like you see to your point, you see the Apple Vision Pro, which I'm always happy to complain about. But in the Apple Vision Pro, everything they're showing is you have more screens, but they're spatially around you. So it seems funny to kind of mimic this same thing. It makes, we've heard of the kind of surgery or the surgeon wearing glasses, and then is that the right thing? I'm curious.
Yes,
do you have any thoughts?
As somebody who's been part of that industry for a long time, I've seen all these pitches and promises, and quite often they come down to what you get in the end is a bunch of people wearing HoloLens looking at a thing that is the operating room, right? That they're designing together. And that's not how things happen in the real world. And it's not the most practical way of going about that. I'm also very critical about the Apple Vision Pro. And I see in this particular case, Apple following mistakes of many others. But also, it's Apple. So this will be much more polished product. I hope it works, because if it doesn't, that's not good for the industry. But what they presented is pretty much following what I just mentioned. Many more things, many more companies explored ways of innovating on things that are perfectly fine and mature. And I don't see people buying a $3,000 headset to watch Netflix anytime soon. And I've heard that many times over from companies that no longer exist. So I just hope it leads to something new. I bet the hardware will be good. I bet the design, and both in terms of interactions and what it actually feels like. better than what we're used to currently. But I'm skeptical also.
Okay, so we've got two skeptics on Apple Vision Pro. I'm in camp Apple from day dot, so I'm sadly
I'm kind of split
never bought
myself.
shares.
So
It's my trouble.
it's not just skepticism. It's, you should be cautious because there've been many others who were promising the same thing, and it just doesn't work.
All good, all good. Helena, sort of insights from the last year that have sort of really triggered you to be watching this field as closely as we are today. What are the sort of the top things that really stood out to you in the last recent memories?
So, I mean, obviously in the marketing field, the big dominator this year was the ChatGPT, or like everything powered by GPT, GPT 3.5, then GPT 4, and apparently we're looking at 5 soon, which I have heard someone who has actually had a look at the thing. They pretty much reckon it could write you a Hemingway. I'm skeptical until I see it.
Well, that's just no punctuation, so that's easy.
But yeah, it's been massive. I mean, I have looked at generative AI tools. About 2 years ago, I looked at a tool called Jasper, which was all about generating marketing copy and content and all that kind of thing, also based on a GPT model. At the time, this was probably about, I don't know, a couple of months to a year before ChatGPT's launch, and I was really underwhelmed by Jasper because it was not giving enough credit again to the user. It was not giving enough customization. So essentially, it abstracts the ability to prompt under certain predefined commands. So you can click a button that says like, write me a blog article, and then you give it, I don't know, up to 200 characters of input, and it spits you out a blog article. And like nothing good can come of that, right? It's not enough context or nuance or anything like that. And so essentially peeling back all those layers of what they have built on top of GPT to create this idiot-proof tool, when that was all peeled back and the actual like raw kind of tool was released at the end of 2022, and people started learning and engaging and looking at how do we prompt this thing properly. How do we...
Almost gone as a topic in this last year. Yeah.
Adam, what was that?
The prompt engineering world was almost its own topic in the first half of last year, and it's still there. But the way to do the jailbreaking of, if you can ask it the same question in a different mode, I think those things are becoming more commonplace. As I think the battle is becoming lost of, if it has the ability to finish a sentence, you can find a way to have it finish any sentence, copyright. So there's an arm wrestle in the lawyer land, which is always good fun to watch. But no,
it's just getting smarter and smarter as well. We've seen it go through several iterations alone in the past year, and mind you, it goes through phases where I feel like it's actually just having a super dumb day, which is obviously not really likely for AI, but it can go through days where it performs like, a kind of top assistant in getting you from kind of raw data through to information that you can then go and take and turn it into copy or turn it into knowledge, or depending on what field you're operating in. There are days where it just acts like my 7-year-old who cannot follow the most basic of commands, and you just end up quite frustrated. And sometimes I've just said stuff to it like, can you rephrase it please, but make it sound less idiotic? And then it will say like, I'm sorry if you found my answer not up to scratch. Here you go, I'll try again. And sometimes it comes back with something better. So that whole development is something that I'm keeping a really close eye on, and I would never advocate writing anything, let alone marketing copy, with the use of a language model like GPT. But I think there are many applications that are super useful. Like I get it to sort data. I get it to summarize data. I get it to pull out semantics out of large volumes of data, which I guess, how does that relate into the space discussion? How does that relate to spatial elements? Spatial, I mentioned initially, I'm looking at place, and one of the big challenges with defining places is the semantic component. It's like, what do people mean when they talk about places? So how can we translate that into the zeros and ones of a binary computer system? And one of the approaches I was looking at just even a couple of years ago was something like a natural semantic meta-language, which is from linguistics. I think it was developed in maybe Melbourne, I don't know, Andrew, and it was Griffith University, somewhere in Australia.
Yeah.
And they actually just distilled language down into its core set of semantic components that are transferable across every single language and culture. And you end up with a very, very limited set of words that are left to communicate with. And so my initial thinking was to use this natural semantic meta-language to go into asking, interviewing across cultures, across languages, what makes a place, getting this like really kind of baseline for what is a place, to then trying to formalize that for a, computer kind of system, so that we can start building applications with places rather than space. Because I mean, if you're living in an area and there's a river right there and there's a playground on the other side of the river, then a spatial closeness does not mean anything to you. Where's the next bridge? Like, that's not part of your neighborhood. So from my background, it's all about like looking at quality of life applications, but it plays into everything kind of geographic, spatial, and so on. And I feel like these large language models have potentially the ability to help with some of that semantic reasoning, so it's the semantic research around that whole place-space discussion. And that's really what I intend to be looking at in my PhD moving forward. So it's changed completely from when I started in 2014, what was possible to what's possible now. The whole approach needs to shift, and I think the whole approach is shifting, and we're seeing that in all areas of the spatial application world. So that's kind of the exciting development that plays not only into my professional marketing kind of role, but also into my personal research role. And I find that super interesting. So it's been a big year, I guess.
Have you seen that spatial or the placial aspects fold into the language models in the last, 6 months? I guess it's now, the first 6 months was kind of ChatGPT and Copilot, and I'm going to be at a disservice to some of the big ones, but there were, you could count them on one hand. In the last 6 months of last year, wow, an explosion of minified, bigger, more focused, some that even finally had the ability to adjunct your own data sets to be able to ask pointed questions as opposed to generic questions. Have you seen sort of others in those molds trend towards spatial context, or is that something that you're looking forward to in the next year or two?
Personally, I haven't seen that. I'm curious as to what the other guys, Violet's nodding, so please let me know what there is. I haven't looked yet in great detail, so what can you guys tell us about that, Violet and William?
Well, I was just thinking about it because we've been doing a lot of experiments programming and thinking a lot about words and what can you do with a word that gives context about space. So, a lot of the stuff we've been playing with is, you take a camera and a projector, and if you can see a chair on one side, you can say things like, draw a circle that moves between the left side of the chair at the top right, or place, quotes from the movie The Matrix on the chair or under the chair. So you can start to do programs that have spatial context. And we've been thinking a lot about things like prepositions. That's maybe more, semantically, I don't know if that would be space or place, but I think that there's something in that, like kind of trying to break apart language and understand what it means. And not to go off on a totally different tangent, but something I've been thinking about is this thing called, have you heard of speech act theory? I'm going to slaughter what it means, but there's this thing called speech act theory, and it has to do with when we speak anything, we're actually enacting real actions or programs almost into the world. So when you say I do, it actually has like a legal context, or when you say something, you're commanding something. And so I think, thinking about language as spatial, but also thinking about it almost as a program or an instruction is really interesting to me, that we're like actually, when we're talking to each other, we're actually like setting out spatial instructions and programs with each other. And
we are just robots in lobbyist suits, I guess, is the sad truth. No, look, that's epic to hear. Look, for my mind, last year has just been a cavalcade of epochs. I have a nasty habit of doing a weekend project or a side project. I actually done a project almost every year while watching the Tour de France. In this part of the world, the Tour de France goes for 3 weeks, but it's in the evening, late evening, which is my greatest time to work in the whole world. So you can sort of have it on while you're typing away, and over the course of 3 weeks, see if you can get a project done. Perfect timing. But last year was a whole year of, I'd start something, I'd get going on something, I'd think it was a goer, and I'd get halfway through something, I'd probably put the domain name and started some raw code and figured out the basics. And then it became a red button on someone else's application. And that happened at least half a dozen times. And I'm happy to hear it, because, it sort of means I didn't need to keep on going. I do have a habit of putting my projects to sleep quite easily. I don't get too wrapped up in them anymore. But the pace of change was so much that there were fields eating themselves 3 or 4 times last year. One of them in my wheelhouse is my work that I do. Photogrammetry is the art of turning still images or video stills into a 3D mesh. We do it with rocks down the Great Ocean Road, this part of the world, which is lovely. My wife can sort of read the strata like I read sheet music. She's a geologist. She's awesome in that regard. So I'm her drone pilot, and it's not hard to capture the images. It requires bike rides and then long coffees while the batteries are recharging. But then it takes time to bake, and that photogrammetry 3D mesh is phenomenal. You can then pass that around and use that as a reference. Well, that was usurped early this year by a technology called NERFs, which is a neural radiance field. It does have a pretty epic backronym. Essentially, handwave, it's a way of not having to do a baking, figuring out where 3D pixels are from 2D camera images, but just inferring using AI. That's the handwave. But that whole technology, about 3 or 4 months later, was usurped by Gaussian splatting, which it's a different variation on the same topic. Again, there is no mesh made. It's on the fly, figuring out where things have to be if you've got an input pictures. So we went from photogrammetry to NERFs to GASPs, Gaussian splatting. But then just in the last month, we've had, and here is my backronym award for 2023, SMERFs, streamable NERFs, as a way of linking together NERFs on the fly. And there's a lot of examples of walking around rooms or objects or houses, and on the fly it can figure out what's behind everything, and it feels like you're playing a video game, yet there's no 3D model to be seen. It's just input images, and on the fly it can just tell you what you're looking at, and you can look behind as many things as there were images of, and to different levels of truthiness. It will try and infer what's behind something if it didn't figure out if there was anything explicit. But the fact that these technologies are eating themselves within 1 year, 2024 is going to be probably streamable GASPs soon, and then there'll be something else even better. But to some levels, it's epoch changing, because our photogrammetry, the end result is a lot of images and then a 3D mesh, which is an immutable object. NERFs and GASPs, horrible to say it that flippantly, don't leave behind a mesh. They do things on the fly, which is a paradigm shift. You can't give someone the output unless you convert it back. So there's all sorts of ways that we're eating ourselves and trying to figure out what's next. And do we even need the things that were the transient technologies of even 9-12 months ago? So they're just fields that just overriding themselves. It is the same sort of thing. Yeah. Well, team, we might have to leave it there. That is definitely, we are at time. Huge thanks. That was just the start of a deep dive into our different backgrounds, our different points of view. Next week, we will start, and by all means, never finish, a early definition of what is spatial AI. It's one of the topics that I'm sure we will be able to recover and cover again. It'll change every third month. So we'll give it a first high-level go next week. We'll see if we can put a few lenses on what the hell we're even talking about. For now, though, from me, thank you all. Helena, thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Mirek, thank you for that. Time for rest. Jet lag is kicking in.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And Violet and William in Philly, thank you so much for joining into your evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So from all of us here, we'll sign off now and we'll catch you next week on Spatial. Thanks, everyone.
If you'd like more news and insights about spatial AI, or have a story or interesting topic you'd like us to cover, then reach out to us. Or better yet, come and join the community at Spatial. All the links are in the show notes.